Hello, everyone. My name is Terry Burgess, and I will be discussing the Polaris Industries for our second case study here in BA 579 Supply Chain Management. Now, I'll go ahead and dive into the first of the four questions posed for this case report. So, to start us off, why does Polaris outsource most component manufacturing but insource final assembly? Oftentimes, companies like Polaris will outsource their component manufacturing to take advantage of potentially specialized expertise that a company may have in a specific part, as well as taking advantage of lower costs with economies of scale, etc. And they'll still want to assemble the final product in-house to ensure that it does meet their company standard and to maintain oversight over quality of control over the end product. As far as on the other hand, some companies that do opt for near 100% vertical integration, there are some potential advantages to that, including they'll have complete control at that point over their supply chain, as well as over the quality of the component parts. It can be a pretty big aid in innovation for companies. If you think about it, if everything's manufactured in-house, it's much easier to coordinate with different departments in-house to change certain components, etc., to get a new desired final product versus having to reach out to multiple companies if you're outsourcing to have them change those component parts to your new specifications for your new innovation that you're trying to do. Of course, there's a lot of risk with that as well, right? If everything's within house, it's a lot higher capital that you need, etc. Um, but yeah, that answers the first question, I do believe. As far as the second question here, the which manufacturing location offers Polaris the greatest cost savings, I came up with Mexico with my calculations, and I can go in some depth here about those calculations. So for the production cost, you can see the U.S. was always the highest, and China was always the lowest. But if you look over at the labor cost, you can see that China was continually rising. Mexico was as well, but China at a much faster rate. And with all the calculations at the end product for the net present cost, Mexico ended up saving the company a little over $5 million over 5 years, while China ended up saving Polaris a little over $2 million over 5 years. So I came up again with Mexico having the lowest net present cost for this project. For our third question here, on conducting the sensitivity analysis, I decided to focus on tariffs as far as foreign exchange markets and how the dollar fluctuates with the yuan and the peso. That's much more complicated than I have the current knowledge and expertise to try to go into. But tariffs is pretty straightforward right now. So to start with, I just doubled the tariffs on China from the 5% we were given in the project to 10%. That's the first set of data that you see here. When you do that, of course, the cost savings by China go down from it was a little over 2 million in the previous set. Now it's a little 1 million, which makes sense, right? If you're doubling the tariff rate, you're going to cut savings roughly in half. Um, I just as of note, I do think the current tariff rate on China is around 30%. So that's the second set of numbers down there. So in that scenario, it actually costs Polaris a little over $3.5 million over 5 years to move manufacturing to China. So besides all those hard numbers, there are a lot of qualitative factors that I thought should be considered before making a decision whether to stay in the U.S. or to move out to Mexico or China. In general, it's no secret trade wars are breaking out all over the globe. While we do also have some tariffs on Mexico as well, currently USMCA goods, which is the new NAFTA, those goods are exempt from tariffs. My understanding, a majority of the goods that Mexico sells to the U.S. are USMCA goods. And also, while the U.S. frequently has some friction with our relationship with our neighbor to the south, in general, that pales in comparison to the strained relations that we often have with China. And as I was going over this project, it just occurred to me, I know it's kind of out of left field here, but I wondered why manufacturing in Europe was not considered, as far as places for them to potentially move their manufacturing. With their international revenue growing and most of that being in Europe, as well as most European nations being part of the EU free trade bloc, it seemed like a logical choice to me. Nations, especially in Eastern Europe, do have large industrial bases and lower wages than the United States. That would reduce transportation costs for products sold in Europe, the ones that remained in Europe. And of course, those that remained in Europe would also benefit from zero tariffs, as long as they remained within the EU trading bloc. Of course, there are still potential for tariffs for goods that were shipped back to the U.S., but that current tariff rate is 15%, which is half of the current tariff rate that we're charging China. It is also my understanding that the EU globally does a better job at training their citizens in trade schools versus the US, so their manufacturing talent gap may be much smaller there if it exists at all. So just a thought as I was going through this, I thought that they would be potentially a choice too. Well, anyway, that's a wrap for my case two for this course. Please feel free to leave any comments that you feel relevant, and I hope you have a pleasant day.